The theoretical and technical balance in architectural education is an ongoing challenge educators and students are facing in today's digital age. This balance existed long before the state at which technology has advanced to today. One of the first schools whose primary focus was to rectify this imbalance was the Bauhaus in Germany. Bauhaus educated students in both theoretical design and technical craft, aiming to shape students to be more well-rounded in the architectural field. Lessons can be drawn from this mentality and applied to today's digital learning and teaching methods. They highlight questions we should be asking about modern education and potential avenues that may be considered to combat this imbalance. First, it is important to look at Bauhaus in Germany and eventually its beginnings in North America. Bauhaus, founded in 1919, connected with the cultural, political, and economic progressions more than any other school of its time. The Industrial Revolution played a role in the main concepts that would drive the education at Bauhaus. Bauhaus rejected the reliance on machines to conduct skilled trades, replacing manual labor. Bauhaus was not rejecting the use of technology, but perhaps the sole reliance on it and therefore removal of these skills from the curriculum. Bauhaus saw the idea of a machine as something that could aid a student rather than replace them. This is an extremely relevant topic today and something I experienced as an undergraduate student studying architecture. To what degree do we let technology design or make design decisions for us, and how does this hinder the curriculum aimed at creating well-rounded, knowledgeable students? With its curriculum, Bauhaus aimed at creating a new guild of craftsmen without the class distinctions that raise an arrogant barrier between craftsmen and artists. Bauhaus students were taught the basics from materiality to color to foundational years through what was known as mastery. They were able to design their work and then also build it through commissions and collaborative work with the Weimar Building Trade School. They were able to physically manifest their design ideas, a luxury that could not be afforded in today's online education, particularly during the current pandemic. Soon these ideas and Bauhaus influences were brought over to North America. Black Mountain College in North Carolina, Harvard and Cambridge, and the Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago are three schools where the Bauhaus influences were particularly profound. Joseph and Annie Albers, former students and masters at the Bauhaus, modified the architectural program at Black Mountain College. They worked on shaping the studios into more well-rounded education of blended theory and craft. Joseph Albers would take his students outside to gather physical objects to then be brought back and studied within the studios. These physical concepts are difficult to implement in digital online education as we struggle with more limited mediums of teaching. At Harvard, Bauhaus founder Walter Gropius was appointed chair of the Graduate School of Design. Here he aimed at moving Harvard away from its traditional Bauhaus education into a new way of designing and thinking. This change was evidently influenced by innovative thinking and teaching methodologies that differentiated Bauhaus from other schools of its time. The Illinois Institute of Technology was influenced by both Laszlo Moholy-Nagy and Mies van der Rohe, who were said to have influenced the curriculum to adhere more closely to Bauhaus than the previous schools. Mies organized the curriculum so a student might feel pleased with careful drawing, model, or analysis in which all the factors were understood and incorporated into the solution. This concept is again a more well-rounded approach to architectural education in which a range of media is used to analyze a design and to allow the student to reach a solution. Evidently, technology has progressed greatly in the present, and although it is inevitable that mediums of teaching and learning will evolve over time, we seem to be reaching a new extreme with digital education. Next, I will look at how these concepts explained above are being lost in the present, highlighting issues current architectural education is facing, and suggest potential approaches that could be taken to rectify this imbalance. As education has switched to fully online modes of instruction and production, the balance between the technical and theory has become further unbalanced. This is not to say that architecture should fully reject the digital, but perhaps revisit how it is used. When a student is solely working on a project on a computer, this concept of disembodiment can occur. Disembodiment in architecture may result when a project is only explored through digital media rather than a range of media, and there's a lack of physicality within the design process. Physically inhabiting buildings renders them much different than if they were solely viewed as a digital model. Embodiment is a critical concept to understand a design, as architecture is both a physical and volumetric body that incorporates other bodies. New concepts have emerged about digital architecture and how it can be much more effective when it is used for the basic building blocks or elements or abstract fragments rather than for the entire building. Beyond digital design tools, digital education is often seen as lower quality of education due to a loss of engagement between students and educators. Some modern approaches to combating disembodiment and this loss of engagement will be discussed further. Due to recent events, digital education has become the norm in most post-secondary institutions around the world. When there is no option for in-person instruction, it may be worthwhile to further explore learning methodologies to combat this corresponding loss of engagement. One method may be to use meta-learning. Meta-learning has been defined as developing a greater self-awareness as a learner and becoming more independent in one's learning. More simply put, the success of a student heavily depends on their own self-reflection and self-understanding. The iterative process of design is most effective when a student is a strong meta-learner. If a student does not analyze their work and become self-aware, they may never see where their improvements may lie in their work. This is a pattern that is easy to fall into when designing solely using digital media. From my experience studying architecture, many students would prioritize their visuals and graphics over an understanding of how their design may work or be constructed. In this sense, it is very hard to see the faults within a design when there isn't a great deal of meta-learning in the design process. It is understood that a student can't always make their design into physical entities, and that technology is an extremely useful tool when used within the architectural field. Technology in the field has advanced to a point that allows us to build much more complex buildings than in the past. There are some technologies that are worthwhile discussing here that may help or hinder the design process, including virtual reality and parametric design. Through interiorizing an embodiment, virtual reality allows the user to get a direct experience and feeling of the place he or she is visiting, sharing emotions, perceptions, and skills with other virtual viewers and in the surrounding architectural or urban context. This technology can afford a designer a sense of embodiment and inhabitation in a space that cannot be physically manifested. Although this paper is meant to be hermetic rather than scientific, the value of virtual reality has clear connections to neurophysiological studies with architecture. These studies have examined the emotional responses to architectural visual properties such as contour and form through three-dimensional spatial geometries. It was conducted that architectural spaces are governed by the dynamic sensory-motor activity of the human organism as a whole and is thereby influenced by the particular conditions of a man's embodiment. Virtual reality has afforded designers to respond arguably more effectively than other design mediums through selective reinterpretation and immediate evaluation. Lessons from Bauhaus show the physical methods and lessons within design education played a large role in maintaining this balance and preventing disembodiment. When some of these methods are no longer possible during the current state of education, virtual reality is an example of a technology that could be a worthwhile and effective compromise. Parametric design is another form of digital architectural technology that has proven to aid designers and at times also hinder the design process. In using algorithms input by a designer, it may output design elements that are both meaningful and worthwhile to a project. There are also ways in which it can be merely visual, ignoring the associated algorithmic complexities that make it meaningful. The concept of parametric design replacing traditional design methods can be loosely tied to the rejection of the Industrial Revolution ideas that emerged before and during the formation of the Bauhaus. When it is used improperly, parametric design can turn into a style disposing itself of the restraints of external parameters and promotes the autonomy of architectural forms, while it cannot advance beyond new ways of shaping matter to produce unexpected spaces. This concept stems back to the Bauhaus's rejection of machines replacing age-old trades. When technology such as parametrics begin to take over design, a student becomes further disembodied from the work that they are creating. Technology can only produce something based off the information or parameters we provide to it. It does not have the cognitive ability to reason why it is created or how it can be improved. When a parametric space is unintentionally articulated, lacking a model of design thinking, it begins to steer the design process. It can, however, be an extremely useful technology when the designer inputs useful information into its parameters based off their design knowledge and criteria. When it is merely used for aesthetics, it becomes completely disembodied technology from the designer, and the architecture created with it begins to lose its meaning. As architectural education moves online, it becomes completely removed from the material in a way that will have a profound effect on design teaching and production. Therefore, the imbalance between theoretical design and technical craft increases. Materiality and form are the basic elements that make a building physical. Many argue that the traditional design methods of hand drawing and physical modeling should still be at the foundational level of architectural education. At Bauhaus, this method was used to test pure design ability before moving into the more advanced studios or workshops. In the present, this would allow all students the ability to display raw design ideas without the limitations or advantages that digital technologies provide. Then, as architectural education progresses, most design production and processes are done through digital means. Technology in architecture has evolved rapidly since the time of Bauhaus, however the concepts from that time still remain relevant. Technology is a constantly evolving and complex system of processes. It is how it is used that makes it the most beneficial. Although technology has changed, the concept of architecture as a formal body that is designed to inhabit our bodies remains unchanged. We must not lose sight of architecture as a physical manifestation as the education and practice of it continues to digitize in the future. Thank you.